going right into his heart. And when he got that connection, that ripped him wide open.
Christian fiction isn't just about telling a good story. It's about reaching the heart in a way nothing else can. Today, I'm joined by Tim Shoemaker, an author whose journey into writing didn't start with a lifelong dream, but with a real-life experience, family influence, and a calling he couldn't ignore. In this first part of our conversation, we dig into how Tim went from running a business to becoming a full-time writer, how God uses life's broken pieces to build something better, and why stories have the power to bypass the mind and go straight to the heart. If you've ever wondered why storytelling matters so much in the Christian life, this is where it begins. Okay, audience, I'm talking to Tim Shoemaker today, and we're so happy to have him join us. Tim, would you tell us something about yourself?
Well, Mike, writing was a second career for me. I guess that's one thing that's interesting. It wasn't like, I grew up wishing I could be a writer someday. It was not even on my radar. It was not there at all. It was second career. I actually had do you remember the 1 hour photo labs and studios? Way back in the day. Yeah. My wife and I had one of those. And so we developed pictures and printed pictures for people, took family portraits, all that type of stuff. But we closed that in 2004, and I had been doing some writing on the side, a growing interest on it. And then I went into it, with both feet after that point when we closed that business. But so that was a second thing for me.
Yeah. Well, where do you live? We don't want your address, but
Sure. I live just northwest of Chicago in Illinois.
Is that right?
Yep.
Was there some place southwest of Chicago where you like to go to kind of recharge your batteries and refresh your soul?
Let's see. Southwest of Chicago?
Well, close to where you live.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, when anytime I get around water, that's nice. Big water, especially, a big lake or, something like that. That's great. But here's something interesting, which works out nice with Midwest. But Mike, I have found sometimes working alongside a cornfield can be really good. Yeah. So it's like this unexpected place. I love writing outdoors. Yeah. So, 6 months of the year, generally I'm writing outdoors, maybe a little more than that. So whenever I can do that, I'm there. But sometimes it means not just going outside, but finding a location. So, riding alongside a cornfield or, again, along a lake or something like that is always good. I've got a couple of standing desks, that I made.
Oh, yeah.
So that, So Mike, I'm trying to think how many years it's been now. It's gotta be 5 or 6 years. I've been writing standing most of the time. And I've found that is really good. Again, it's another thing that I would have not guessed. I would have, if I tried to imagine, I would have thought, no, not for me. But, I tried it and I found there was some great advantages to it.
Well, Tim, what are 3 of your favorite songs?
Oh my goodness. That would be a tough one. I'm horrible at that.
Well, it's just for right now. It doesn't have to be your all-time favorite, but just if someone were to say, what do you want to listen to? What would be something you come up with?
Well, it'd be probably some extremes. Because on the one hand, church Sunday morning, I can't possibly think of something I would like better than some of the worship songs that they're playing. I mean, all into that. And teared up and the whole thing. So other times, I probably would still enjoy some of the old rock and roll, from the 70s or 80s. And just, just kind of for fun. But a lot of the times, Mike, if I'm in the car, I don't have anything on, or if I'm taking a walk, I don't have it on because I need to think. And the music will influence me, my emotions, everything like that. And I've got to keep a clear head to work on that writing.
Well, how about movies? Do you have 3 favorite movies?
Oh boy. Well, I think, there's some that you wouldn't tire, I guess, of seeing. I love the adventure films. I mean, the Indiana Jones, right?
Yeah.
And some of those things were just so great to be able to see again. Or if I'm with my wife, it might take a different turn there. She wants something, just a little bit less. Well, she doesn't want to watch maybe the shoot 'em ups, as she calls, just watching something just a little bit calmer. So, it's about enjoying, I guess, whoever you're with, and
that's
and
part
watching
of
that.
it.
Yeah.
Well, tell us about your walk with Christ, if you don't mind.
Well, I was fortunate enough to grow up in a Christian home, which was great. So I had Christian parents, Christian grandparents, and my grandparents on both sides. So that was really good. That talk about getting some, tracks to run on. You had this, this family that was cheering you on in those ways. And I think probably like most guys, it took that transition from being, your parents' faith or your family's faith to becoming yours in different degrees as you went along. So there was, especially during high school, in those early college years, I think that was just a time of rededicating, and growing closer. And then, I mentioned earlier, having that business. I'll tell you what, those hard times in life do a lot to continue to grow you and draw you closer to Christ. And that was a huge thing. When we were closing that business, you talk about desperate times. You're afraid you're going to lose it all. You're not sure what you're to do. And you don't want to miss anything that God has planned. You don't want to miss a cue. You don't want to put yourself in a position where God can't bless. And so there was a desperation there that, praying, Lord, I don't want any duplicity. I don't want any of that in my life. I don't want anything that would hinder your hand of blessing in my life, anything that would hinder me hearing from you as we move forward, because, I got to get this right. I want to get this right. And God, obviously such a rescuer, so gracious, that I am, eternally grateful.
Well, there's times like that kind of teaches you to actually trust in God for whatever's coming down the pike your way.
Right. Absolutely right.
And like you say, you don't want to miss it.
You've got that right.
So what sparked your calling to write Christian fiction?
Well, interestingly, it was nieces, nephews, and my own kids, because I used to love telling them stories, so I tell them stories and, watching their eyes get wide and such. And I'd hear a lot of, Uncle Tim, you got to write these down, or Dad, you got to write these stories down. And Mike, I had no interest in that. It's like, I thought, I'm not even going to remember this. We're kind of working off the top of our head. But one time I tried and I found out I loved it. Again, it was something I didn't imagine I would, but I loved it. And so that was the beginning. I kept working at that, starting to take classes, reading books, and learning more and more about that craft of writing. So it started out that way, urging from kids and nieces and nephews, and really learned quickly this is what God was preparing me for.
Yeah.
And a similar thing happened with the speaking too, because you're starving trying to do it with the writing, and again, want to be open. I didn't want to say no to anything if it was part of God's plan, even though it might scare me to death. And so that's the way it worked with the speaking as well. Is wasn't seeking that out, but an opportunity came. And after I had done that speaking, I remember feeling like, that first time, feeling like this was something I never knew I always wanted. It was like a door opened up, and I fully believed, oh my goodness, God made me for this writing and speaking. He has made me for this. And everything I'd done, to be, part of the business, that I was in. And I loved that when the business was doing good. When it was choking me, that was something else again. But so many things that I developed or whatever, that made me suited for that, I found actually served me better as a writer and a speaker. So, God surprises. It's sort of like Legos, and for our visual here, I've got a Lego box. So, you know how it is, Mike, right? You see these boxes of Legos, and they've got this great looking picture on the cover, but when you open it up, what do you get? You get
broken pieces.
That's right.
I mean, after a while they get separated at least.
Right. But you just got bags of pieces, an instruction manual. And I found that's very much the way it is in life too.
Yeah.
Boy, I tell you what, that Lego me, when we closed that business, it was like it had been dropped and pieces scattered. But God used those pieces, those old experiences I'd had before and all those different decisions that I'd made before. He used them, and he rebuilt something different. And it was like, oh my goodness, this is better than where it had been before. So, God does great things like that. And that's really exciting.
God doesn't waste anything.
No. The good decisions and the bad. He used them all to form you into the person that you are.
Yeah.
And then as a writer, I think we have an extra bonus because we can use both the good, the bad, the experiences in our life, the experiences of people we see around us.
Yep.
And we can use that in our writing to make it more real, but also to help convey wisdom to our readers. We gain wisdom often through decisions and experiences, but they don't always have to be ours. It can be somebody else's. That's where we've got so many great stories in the Bible, right? We see, hey, they make a choice, and we get to see how it worked out for them. And we gain wisdom if we apply that to our life. And so it's the same thing with writing. Writing is so powerful. You were talking about music before, right? And I can't play. I'm not musical like you are, Mike. And I wish I was. But I feel like writing is the closest thing to music, in that it can stir somebody. It can move in somebody's emotions. You can do that with writing, just like when they're hearing that music. So yeah, it's a powerful way to communicate with others, where you can show truth, and you can convey wisdom and help them learn about life and decisions and what happens with the decisions that we make.
Right. So, well, the things that you say to people are like a song.
Oh.
So if you have a nice song that people will want to hear more of, you're going to be able to talk with that person and have a good exchange of ideas.
Yeah.
But if you're playing a funeral dirge every time someone talks to you,
Ooh,
they're not going to
good.
speak to you anymore. You know, they're going to get away from you as soon as they can. So
that's
I
good. I
wanted to stick that in there just because you were talking about writing as kind of like music, and it is. It is.
Yeah. It's so clever the way you put that with, the funeral dirge. That's just sticking in my mind because, some people could be so down or negative or critical. Maybe that's the right word. And it's just like, you want to get away and so you can breathe. Yeah.
Yeah. So what are they going to complain about this time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh my. So, I wanted to ask you, what you indicate that you speak, what are the topics that you present to your audiences?
There's a number of them. Sometimes it's at writing conferences and teaching writing technique. So that's that's a big one. It's something I really enjoy. Other times, I'm talking to parents because I write fiction and I write nonfiction. So I have books of object lessons, ways that we can teach truth to our kids and ways to really listen. So I'll do demonstrations and talks about that. Got a book on what to say and how to say it to your teen, written with one of my sons. And so there again, that's a resource for parents. So we'll talk to parents about that, or talking at maybe a men's conference. So, and then schools, there's school visits, homeschool conventions. That's a huge one.
Well, that goes hand in hand, doesn't it? Writing,
yes.
being an
author.
My goodness.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. Encouraging people to write and helping them to write in a way that it can be accepted and useful.
Right.
That's pretty cool.
Where it's not just writing to entertain, but writing to inspire.
Yeah, with a purpose.
Yeah. A purpose beyond, again, just entertainment.
Yeah.
I mean, our stories should entertain, but they should also inspire.
Yeah. Yeah. We need to be able to hold the attention of our audience.
Yep.
And a bunch of thou shouts doesn't always do it.
No. That's for sure. That's for sure.
We are going to talk about your books. I enjoy just talking about, well, like we've been doing. I think that's a fun conversation. Yeah. But is there any biblical truth or passage that anchors, say, the last book you've written or the one you'd like to talk about?
Oh man. Well, let's see. The last one I did was a nonfiction. And I think one of the things that's driving, but it also drives my fiction, is, and the fiction I'm working on, a fiction project right now, but it says this in Psalm 71, verse 18, and you might be familiar with it, Mike, but it goes like this. Even when I'm old and gray, do not forsake me, O God, till I declare your power to the next generation, your might to all who are to come. That just resonates with me so much because I want to be able to convey to this next generation, to these readers coming up, truth about God and, how great he is. And, but to do that, especially in the area of fiction, that takes, a massive amount of work because there's kind of a reputation with, Christian fiction, over the years, it was kind of the big three. There was, it was predictable. It was so predictable where it was going. And then there was plausibility issues. I mean, things that were just unbelievable that were happening in these stories. And then there was the preachiness. And so as a Christian fiction writer, that's what we've inherited. That was what happened before us. And so we have to be really dedicated. And God can help us do that, where we write Christian fiction that is strong and powerful and gets through, but we avoid those three areas that have traditionally been a pitfall for us. So yeah, that verse means so much to me. And there's so many more. Sometimes I'll use a verse as part of a title, and I love that. So like here's one book, Every Hidden Thing. That was the second book in a series, and it was taking that from Ecclesiastes, and it says, "For God will bring every deed into judgment, including every hidden thing, whether it's good or evil." Whether it's good or evil, and it's like I remember, reading that, thinking, "Man, that's a title. That's a title." And there was another one just recently that I used a title from, and that was called "Even in Darkness." And I love that. I love the title. I love the verse a lot more, obviously. But it goes like this, Mike. It says, "Even in darkness, light dawns for the upright, for those who are gracious and compassionate and righteous." Psalm 112:4. And so, it's that message that, hey, even when everything looks dark and you see no light at the end of the tunnel, even in that kind of darkness, light dawns for the ones who, are following God, doing it God's way. He has got a way of making light shine even in our darkest hour.
Yeah. As you were talking, I was thinking, was there anything that resonates that might be a title that I'm familiar with? And I guess the words from a hymn just jumped out at me.
Yeah.
Cleft in the rock.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Hey, there you go.
I could almost write that.
You bet. Yeah. Yeah. Right. That's good.
I think when we were emailing, we talked a little bit about our audiences, and many of our listeners are looking for books that reach boys, and men, and of course, probably the largest segment of our audience are females, so we don't want to leave them out, but particularly boys, how to help them grow up to be good, solid Christian men.
Yeah.
How do you feel that your books would reach boys?
Well, you're going to have something on your heart that you want to convey to them. Now, I might not start out the story that way. It might not. I might be halfway through, Mike, before I realize, this is what it's really about. This is what it's about. And I love that, because then, of course, you're doing rewriting and such, but you're able to work more towards that theme. But you want it to, for me, I want it to be very organic, to grow out of the story and not be something that feels agenda driven, where I started out with this and was writing to a theme. But we can, whichever way we do it, we're going to have something strong in our heart that we want to convey. But if the writing isn't good, if it's not of a style that our readers can handle, we're not going to get through. So that's a big thing. So I want to target the toughest audience out there, and that would be our young men, our boys. And say, I'll write for them. And if you write for them, you'll get the girls too. But if somebody talks to me and says, "Oh, I'm writing for teens, or early teens, or whatever," it's like, no, you're writing for girls, because unless they distinguish it, the chances are they're going to be writing, just for the one. And so there's things that the boys have got to have, and some are pretty basic, like they need a great cover, which that's the first thing they're going to look at. And so if somebody's self-publishing, they gotta make sure that cover is great. It's got to be great. You need a lot of white space on a page.
Yeah.
Boys need that. And that helps them fly through it, quicker. They can turn the pages quicker. They need action. They need something happening or going to be happening. You want to show that story from deep in that heart of your character, and they've got to have a character that they like. So there's all these things that that I want to build into the stories, short chapters, cliffhangers on each chapter, all these things, and doing that, writing and not writing down to our boys. They're smart. They're smart, but they lack experience. And that means they're going to lack wisdom, and they're going to make some bad decisions.
Right.
But it doesn't mean that they're dumb. It might have been a dumb choice, but it's way different than being dumb. And so sometimes what you'll read, like in a book, it's writing down to those readers. And the reader might not be able to put their finger on what it is that they don't like, but they just don't like it. It feels parental. And if you're going to have a tendency to repeat yourself over and over because you want to make sure that your readers get it. No. They're smart.
Yeah.
They're smart.
Yeah.
And we want to treat them that way. So there's things that I'm going to do when I write so that I'm appealing to that reader. And I'm going to avoid some things that will turn that reader away. So, for example, like romance, you don't need it. You need a great story, real characters. You don't need the romance.
Yeah.
And so you don't put it in there. And a lot of our boy readers or young men, they're not going to like that in there anyway. And so that can turn them off on the book. It's not needed. To me, that's just a lazy writing technique. If we have to put, especially if they're getting, they're crossing some borders and going, too far. That's just lazy writing. Making parents look like idiots. That's another lazy writing thing. That is so stereotypical, and it's so tired, and it's doing such a disservice to our readers because they need their parents. We want stories that encourage them to go to their parents because that's the way God designed it. And, they need that at this time in their life. So many different things, we want to include in the story and not put in there. But the ultimate thing, to me is that's the reader I want to be able to reach.
Yeah.
And if we do that right, there's always a strong, female, character or two in there as well. And so again, the girls love it, but the guys, it's like, they really connect. And that's really good. Yeah.
Well, we were wondering about whether or not teenagers like your books, and I took the liberty to lifting a review. I'm not sure which one this was. I apologize for that. I forgot to write down.
Right.
But the person said, my teenage son loved this book. He's never been much of a bookworm, but I've always tried to encourage reading, so I do buy him books regularly. This is the first time in his life that I've ever seen him stay up late just to read. Or I find him in the game room, randomly reading this book. He could not put it down. Now he's already on the second book in this series. That pretty well tells it, I think.
Yeah. Thank God, right?
Yes.
That's what you pray for when you're writing it. It's that reader that we want. We want to be able to get to their heart. And that's the beautiful thing, Mike, about writing fiction is, and being one who writes nonfiction and fiction. When I'm writing nonfiction, I'm appealing to their logic center, their head. And I'm hoping that, things will resonate and it'll go from their head to their heart and they'll adopt that. But when you're writing fiction, if they're reading past the second or third chapter, they're not taking it into their head. They're taking it into their heart.
Yeah.
So any truth that you're trying to convey, you don't have to worry about that. Are they getting it? They're getting it. It's there. So it's such a powerful thing. I have some people, that think, oh, okay, you're writing fiction. Like, okay, that's just stories. It's sort of discounting it, but they're hugely powerful. Mike, I find it so interesting. You look at the New Testament, for example. Now, in our world we live in right now, I probably can't talk about the whole world, but I can certainly talk about what I know of the United States. Is that you go to just about any church and go to their website, and boy, they've got all the sermons archived. They've got them. Yeah. They've got them. Every sermon in the last 10 years or whatever. They're all there. All these resources, sermon. And interestingly, God, in his infinite wisdom, only gave us one of Jesus's. He only recorded one.
Yeah.
For us to look at. But he gave us lots of his stories. Lots and lots of the stories. And there's something there. The greatest teacher that ever walked on earth uses stories to convey timeless truth. And so you know what? Hey, I love the idea of writing stories because that's what our Jesus did, and they're so powerful. Do you remember the time in 1 Samuel? I think it was in 1 Samuel, but in any case, but when David messes up with Bathsheba, and then he has Uriah set up to be murdered, and it's this awful thing. But
first he tried to get Uriah to go home.
Yeah,
he said, no, right. My men are out in the streets sleeping, so how could I go home?
Right.
Oh,
he's this he's just so honorable, right? And then
David was so dishonorable.
Yeah, he was. But when we read after it would seem, what was David doing, after all this? And it appeared like he was just going through his kingly duties. He's doing his thing. He's able to compartmentalize, which so many men can, and was doing it. Now, he knew the word, he knew the truth, he knew right from wrong, but yet he was still functioning. And then God sent the prophet Nathan to him. And Nathan came to him with a story.
Oh, exactly.
He said, there was this man who had this little lamb. Oh, he loved that lamb. He just raised it from a little baby, slept with it. And then there was a rich man in town. He had a lot of sheep, and a guest came by. And, this rich man, he wanted to make a nice meal for his guest, but he didn't want to take one of his lambs. And so he took this lamb from this man and he slaughtered it for his guest. And, David was livid.
Yeah.
And he was furious. And this man was going to pay. And then we get those famous words from the prophet Nathan. He says, "You're the man."
Yeah.
And that story, see, he wasn't processing that through his head. That story was going right into his heart. And when he got that connection, that ripped him wide open. And it's after
his
that.
defenses were down.
Yes.
And it walked right in and nailed him.
Yep. And then when you read in Psalms, Psalm 51 is that famous Psalm of confession, right? It's the one that so many quote, where it's "Cleanse me with hyssop and I will be clean. Wash me and I'll be whiter than snow." I mean, famous stuff that we look at for confession. But at the very beginning of that Psalm, before verse 1, it says this: "For the director of music, a Psalm of David, when the prophet Nathan came to him after David had committed adultery with Bathsheba." This was the result. Real confession, real brokenness came after he was confronted with a story. That's the power that we have with good stories, is they can convey truth in a way that nothing else can.
What a great conversation. We've been talking about something deeper than writing. we've been talking about how truth actually reaches people. And as Tim shared, sometimes it's not facts or arguments that break through. It's a story that goes straight to the heart. Next time, we're going to take this even further. We'll get into how to reach boys and young men through fiction, what makes this story stick, and how Tim approaches writing in a way that inspires rather than just entertains. You won't want to miss that. And to make sure you don't, subscribe now. This is Mike Baines, out.